You know what time it is. So last year I made a video called 5 must-watch films this October, and I had a lot of fun making that video. And if you don't know, Halloween, October, autumn is by far my favourite time of the year, and scary movies are by far my favourite kind of movies. So this year we're doing it again. These are 5 must-watch films for this October, leading up to the best day of the year. And also I'm aware that there was no video last month. There is a reason for that, which I'll go into at the end. It's nothing tragic or sad, don't worry. You'll find out. But for now, let's get started. So the first film on this list is Hush from 2016, directed by Mike Flanagan. To me, Mike Flanagan is the current king of horror. I've really enjoyed every single thing that he's made. Hush is about a deaf and mute author who is stalked by a psychotic killer in a secluded home. The disability that our main character has puts a really cool twist on the home invasion genre. And the fact that the killer doesn't want to come into the house straight away also puts a really cool twist on things. This is a 80-minute game of cat and mouse that will have you gripped throughout. This film is the definition of the word tense. You rarely ever know if our protagonist actually has the upper hand on the killer or not. Both the main character and the killer are really smart, so they're both trying to be one step ahead of each other. And the fact that the main character is a writer plays into the film quite a bit. Even though she went deaf at 13, she has a voice in her head which we are told is the voice of her mother, and you hear her ask herself, what would one of the characters in my books do? So she has to think of all these potential endings for all the scenarios that she's in. Sometimes you don't know it's happening at first, and it can really take you by surprise. They get you a couple times, it's quite good. And with the film all taking place in one location, it really let Flanagan build that atmosphere. You really feel the isolation, you know, just this one house in the middle of the woods and it's dark and foggy out. My only gripe with the film that comes to mind is that I think the killer takes his mask off too early. The mask is so cool, but that's for sure a nitpick. I'm sure no one else cares. I've just got a thing for cool Halloween masks. But this is a great little watch if you want something short and sweet to get you into the Halloween mood. And it's on Netflix, so if you have Netflix, you can go check it out right now. Up next is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark from 2019, directed by Andre Overdahl. I'm sorry. I think this film often gets overlooked because it's PG-13, so it's looked at more as a kids film, which I understand, but I was really surprised at how much they managed to get away with. There's some really twisted and just gross stuff in this film. The film is set on Halloween night in 1968. A group of friends break into a haunted house and uncover a notebook that unleashes uncontrollable dark forces. This film is based on a book series of the same name, and they did a really good job adapting the artwork to the screen, with amazing practical makeup and prosthetics. This film was produced by Guillermo del Toro, so I'm sure he had a big part in that. And when the film has CGI, it doesn't feel that intrusive. It kind of fits with the rest of the movie. It's kind of hard to explain. I also love movies that are actually set on Halloween, and this film gives you everything you could want. The haunted house, the cornfields, the pumpkins, great stuff. The acting is also really good considering that the cast is so young. A lot is asked of them, and I think they did a really good job selling it. And like I said, there's some really cringe-worthy stuff in here. Not cringe as in bad, but just like gets under your skin, unnerving kind of cringe. Like you transforming into something, or something growing inside you, or eating a body part. I'm trying my best to keep it vague, but it's also not super gory or adult. A young teenager could easily watch this, and this would actually be a good entry point to get into the horror genre. So if you're looking for something fun and spooky that's not going to leave you deeply disturbed inside, this is a great one to watch. Third on this list is The Craft from 1996, directed by Andrew Fleming. If you're a fan of the late 90s and early 2000s, then this film really is for you. The Craft is about a newcomer at a Catholic school who befriends a group of witches who use their powers to get back at their teachers, rivals, and parents. The movie is the 90s incarnated, from the hair, the music, the clothes, people in their late 20s and early 30s playing teenager, amazing stuff. I think this film often gets overlooked because this and Scream came out in the same year, and both films feature Neve Campbell, and Scream being what it is, it got most of the attention. But I found this to be a really cool movie, and one that you should definitely check out. The girls just aren't getting back at their rivals for no reason. Each of them is going through something or suffering from something that really lets you relate to them, and you understand why they are the way they are. And the first 2/3 of the film are quite cathartic because they're sort of coming into their own and getting back at the people who have wronged them. The third act, however, no spoilers, goes into the darker side of witchcraft, and it was really cool to see this film kind of embrace its horror side. And some of the stuff that they came up with to put on screen was really quite cool. But I really enjoyed this movie. The 90s and 2000s are like my favourite era for horror, and this is probably the most 90s film I've ever seen in my life. So if you're looking for a good movie this October to recapture that spirit, you just can't go wrong with The Craft. And number 4 is the Spanish found footage movie Wreck from 2007, directed by Paco Plaza and Jaume Balaguerro. Mr. Worldwide over here. Of all the films on this list, this is the one that I think is the scariest. Wreck is about a television reporter and her cameraman who follow emergency workers into a dark apartment building and are quickly locked inside with something terrifying. I'm not really a huge zombie guy. There was that huge wave of zombie content in the 2010s and I kind of got burnt out really quick, so I didn't check this film out until last year, and the moment I finished it I knew it had to be on this list. This movie does found footage really well. In most found footage movies they have to think of all these really strange reasons as to why the camera has to keep recording throughout the entire film, but with these characters being journalists you don't have to worry about that. And when shit starts going down and everyone in the apartment is locked inside, the residents actually ask the cameraman to keep recording as they think they're being mistreated by the police and the authorities, and they want to get that on video. On top of that, this film feels really real. All the actors feel like real people. They mess up words, they talk over each other and then are told not to do that so they can get a better soundbite for the journalist's video. The reporter will ask to reshoot something so she can fix her hair, but also when they panic like real people would, with talking over each other and they're shouting and the constant questions. And nothing is Hollywoodized or made too big. The lack of music or jump scares really adds to the tension of the film, which in turn makes it terrifying. I love horror movies, but very rarely do I actually get scared watching them. The ending to this film scared shitless. I highly recommend Wreck. It's a tight and terrifying film that's only 78 minutes long. And lastly on this list is Ghostwatch from 1992, directed by Leslie Manning. So in 1992, on Halloween night, the BBC broadcasted an investigation into a haunted house where well-known British presenters at the time, such as Michael Parkinson, tried to see if it was a hoax or not, and over the course of the investigation, they come across some disturbing stuff. Now, this was at a time where the internet wasn't really a big thing, and you would often just watch stuff on TV that's halfway through, and didn't really research that hard into what it was you were even watching. So thousands of people tuned into this thinking it was the news, and shit themselves. And I can see why they'd think it. This feels 100% real. This film is so dedicated to realism. This film actually caused kids to have PTSD. They were that convinced that it was real. There was also a phone number on screen that they encouraged you to call. And if you called it when it aired in 1992, you were given a voice message that told you that this film wasn't real. But that number got called 30,000 times that hour. So of course, lots of people didn't get through and weren't told that. You gotta remember, this was pre-found footage and pre-things like the Blair Witch Project. Like, no one had ever seen anything like this before. Now, the poltergeist in this film is referred to as pipes, because initially the people living in the house think it's the pipes making all the noise at first, and then they go on to call this thing pipes. Pipes the Ghost is hidden throughout this film, in the backgrounds of certain shots and stuff like that. And when you spot him, terrifying. One of the girls has some sort of connection with pipes as well, which is also super creepy. And again, this film is going for realism, so this isn't going to be some kind of Hollywood things jumping at the screen or flying across the room, but it's such a unique and creepy experience that I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. It's pretty hard to find, but the internet's a big place, isn't it? And that's it. Those are the 5 films that I recommend to you guys to watch in October leading up to Halloween. If you watch them, let me know what you think. Leave your own recommendations down in the comments. Like I said at the start of the video, I'm aware there was no video last month. Starting this new job required some time to readjust, but I have been making tons of content. If you head over to shares.io on Instagram and TikTok, you'll see that I've been making like 3 to 4 videos a week for about a month and a half, 2 months now. And they cover lots of different stuff. Recently, I just did a video about the history of Apple, and I think it came out really well. So if you want to see more content with this face in it, I don't know why you would really, but just head over there. I hope you guys have a great October and a great spooky season, and I'll see you guys next time.